Tonight on That's Dark.
In foggy streets where shadows creep, Jack the Ripper roamed to reap. A phantom in the night so deep, leaving London souls to weep. Follow us as we unravel the sinister secrets of the most notorious Jack the Ripper's suspects, whose identities remain cloaked in the mystery and intrigue. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
It's Alyssa.
And Heather.
And we got our part 2 of Jack the Ripper. We're going to be covering the suspects.
Jack the Ripped.
Yep.
I don't know
He was
if he
not
was
ripped. I feel like he wasn't. We can't give him that credit.
No, Ripped
Well,
doesn't really do much for me. So for me,
well, no. But I just feel like,
I mean, he really manhandled some women.
he probably was a little bit. Maybe he had some.
Maybe. I don't know.
Jack the Ripped Ripper.
Jack the Ripped Ripper. Rippin' and rippin'.
He just ripped and ripped. All right,
Ripped.
Sorry.
Sorry.
That's our brains today.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of like little chit chat, but you are going to be going away for a month.
I am. So she'll be posting, well, I'll be having a little break of current.
Yeah.
And she'll be posting some ones from our previous cast, which is the Witching Hour. So she'll be bringing on some of our ones that we feel like was
Really
finished.
good. Yeah.
Like didn't need to be redone, didn't need more.
Definitely Mean Ed Gein.
Valesca Murders.
The Valesca Murders. I have that one ready. I have Anthony Todd.
Oh my.
The
That one was
Celebration
just
Man.
Mean Ed Gein.
So we got those ones.
Yeah.
I've got those ready. So
we have some, and then we'll be back. And then what's really nice is,
I'm doing Ted Bundy when we come back.
I know. And it's like,
finally.
yes.
I can't believe. Dude, do you know what's crazy?
Huh.
So like, okay, so for those of you who have only followed us on here, you may be really confused by us saying this, but we have not even been doing this a full year yet. And that's crazy because it feels like it's been a really long time. But for those of you who don't know, we had a previous podcast called The Witching Hour, which we kind of rebranded everything. We're slowly adding in some of the ones that, like Heather said, are finished and incorporating that to this podcast. But we started that in late July of 2023.
We'll have to do something.
Yeah.
For our year, like,
Yes.
dinner. I don't know, something to be like, here, like
Yeah.
we've been doing this for a year.
It's crazy.
That is so crazy.
And I'm like, holy crap. So
that's insane.
I know.
You know what else is crazy?
What?
Me and Liz
Mm-hmm.
will be together 14 years June.
What?
14 years.
That's insane,
Yeah.
dude.
Crazy.
When June?
In June. It's crazy. June 1st.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Is that when you guys first met or
Yes.
like in person?
When we first, met.
Okay.
But it was like, so like we always talk about it because like from that point on, we weren't separated ever again. So.
Dude, that's so cool.
I know. It's
holy crap, dude.
I had something I was going to chit chat about. Now I don't remember. You said mean Ed Gein, and my head was all mean Ed Gein.
That's all that you're.
And now that's all I can think about. Oh, I think that, I think when we come back, I think doing some of the more notorious ones would be good. Also, we're always looking for ones that aren't really touched on as much, because it's kind of crazy to me. Like when we did the Black Dahlia.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't cover it.
Nope.
It's a movie, but the movie is really
I think because the way that it's really been, I mean, the murder itself is horrific. What the media did is insane. But I feel like it's not really like a lot of things, especially from the older time, is just kind of like passed along and like, boring. But it's like so not true.
No.
Like my mom had never heard of like the Black Dahlia. I'm like,
it's crazy.
It's insane. Like insane. So, I mean,
when you go on that journey, it's just like, so I think it's one I'm going to be doing. I was going to say while I was gone, I was going to really take the time to do research on a couple of different ones. I think I'm going to do the Boston Hill Strangler.
Oh my God. Yes.
Someone who was never caught. Ever.
Oh yeah.
So I can't wait for Ted Bundy.
I know.
We all know he was caught.
Yeah.
Killed.
He's a character.
Killed. And I just have to say for Ted Bundy is I just ask for one thing. Please don't like
Romanticize
that man.
Nasty.
Because please.
Nasty.
I was really quite upset that they used Zac Efron for the movie.
No.
Because I was like that's gonna really.
It's like, I don't find him a great looking person.
Oh, Ted or Zach?
Ted. Well, Zach is, but Ted, no.
No, I don't
find
either.
Ted.
But so many
it's probably
people
his charming ways. I think that's what they're talking more about, like people who met him, like because they are more charismatic typically.
They are,
but
except for Ed. Ed Gein.
Not Ed Gein. Nope, sure wasn't.
He was a different kind of killer.
Yeah,
he evolved.
Like
he literally, I think in his mind was like, I can't work with this skin.
No,
and then stepped it up.
I think there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of mental illness and a lot of serial killers, but I think it's a lot of mental illness with Ed Gein.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot.
I think he was very simple-minded in a way.
Very.
And I literally think when he told the police.
Yeah, he did.
I can't work
with it. Well, I can't work with it.
I think that's literally how he felt. And because he didn't have it, I know we're going to go off on a tangent, people stop. But he didn't have any people contact.
No. Nope.
They didn't mean anything to him.
No.
So to me, that's different than what Ted Bundy was.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
So there's a picture of Ted Bundy, and then we can go ahead and get in because I am so excited about Jack the Ripper's like suspects and the fact that you had to narrow it down to what, 10 or 12?
12
is crazy to me, right? But there's a picture of Ted Bundy where he's looking at the camera.
Oh, I know.
His eyes are, I mean, it's just evil. Like there's no, I'm sorry, to me, no mental illness there.
No.
It is pure evil.
He's too with it.
He's so with it. And it's just evil.
Yeah.
I was like, it chills me to see his eyes. I'm like, oh. And could you imagine? And then we can stop. Like, you see that. That's the last thing you see.
No.
Those women. That's the last thing they saw.
Nope.
Insane. Anyways, that's kind of morbid. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah. Well, one more little side tangent. Heather's going to be watching Insidious for the first time ever.
I am.
Tonight, and I'm so excited.
I am. We decided that from now, because we are so ready for Halloween, we are doing, every time we come together, do our pod, we are watching. I didn't do a lot of horror movies for different reasons, especially ghosty movies or things of that nature. I just didn't want to see them in my room. So, but we're watching a horror film or a film like that each time we meet in the pod. And I think by the time we get to Halloween, we'll be like, okay, we're done.
Yes.
You know?
And not decorating too early this year.
I'm not either.
Not allowing myself.
No.
I am celebrating by Halloween Horror Nights because it starts August 31st this year. And I will be getting my ticket on August 31st.
I'm going when it's cold.
Oh, yeah. I will be going. I don't know if I'm going to get the pass that you can go every single night, but I'm definitely getting the pass where you can go like almost all the nights.
Yeah, I'm going to wait because I know we're supposed to go together. We are going to go together. I'm going to wait till it cools down a little bit.
Yep.
So it even feels like more just like spooky. And
I don't know if I said this before, but I have a theory as to why they're starting it a couple days earlier, because they always start beginning of September. And it's notorious, like they're known for like the very first opening night, it rains. So I feel like they're trying to get ahead of the rain. That's my theory. That or people are just like really ramped up about Halloween Horror Nights this year. Like it's everywhere. All over TikTok, but I also like am obsessed with it, so I'm kind of like seeking it. But they're talking about it now.
I don't know if it's because you sent it to me, but now my TikTok's full of it. So I mean, I'm just saying it's either it is everywhere or you got my algorithm going.
So excited. And they already released 2 houses, and they released a Halloween Horror Nights official TikTok released a little trailer today, and it was Major Sweets, and it's from last year. It was a scare zone, and it was like a mayor who put this some kind of drug in all this candy, and it turned all the kids into killer kids. And so they were all trying to kill you when you were walking in the scare zone. So some people are speculating that that's going to be a house this year. And with the little trailer that they posted today, I feel like that's kind of confirmation.
That's amazing. Kids freak me out anyway. So now I'm going to have killer kids. Yeah. I'm excited.
Yes.
But we should probably get this show on the road.
Okay, so this is a part 2. So I'm sure almost all of you probably know about Jack the Ripper, but if you for some reason don't, or you haven't listened to our first episode, go watch that first and then come back to this.
It will document what he did
in detail
to each and every one of the victims that they know about. So.
Right. And it's detailed.
Yes, very detailed. That is a big trigger warning. Detailed. Mm-hmm. I did not, I did it detailed for reasons to understand how intricate he really did things. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to be covering these suspects. And like she already said, I had to cut it down to 12, and that was even hard. So the number of Jack the Ripper suspects now runs to well over 100. Some of them are highly possible contenders for the mantle of Jack the Ripper. Others are just downright ridiculous. Those are the ones I really took out. Or any of the ridiculous ones. I don't have time for that. I'm putting the ones that make the most sense.
Downright ridiculous.
Yeah. Each year, several books come out claiming that the authors have managed to crack the case and have solved the world's greatest murder mystery. Some of them, admittedly, have managed to unearth fascinating little nuggets of information, and in doing so, have added an extra little piece of the jigsaw, or to the jigsaw. But the majority tend to twist the facts to fit their particular theory, and opposed to looking at the theory and demonstrating how it stands up against the known facts about the case. So, in the early days, the police appeared to have believed that the crimes were being carried out by one of the local gangs, and thus their investigations focused on these so-called high rip gangs.
High rip?
High rip.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was that their nickname because they thought they were the Ripper?
Yeah.
High
rip.
Oh,
gangs.
Okay.
However, by early September of 1888, the police had come to the conclusion that the local game's responsible. Wait, how did I worded that weird? Hold on.
The local gangs.
They came to the conclusion that were the local gangs responsible? The publicity and panic. Oh, that doesn't make sense.
I wonder if, sometimes when you're writing your notes, mine will delete a section.
Yeah, I think that's what happened there.
So.
Anyways, they figured it's not a gang. Not a gang member.
They realized not a gang.
Yeah. So the police started looking for a lone assassin.
Wait. Sorry. Don't mean to stop you. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that they thought it was one person from the gang.
No, they thought it was a gang that was carrying this out.
Come on now.
Yeah.
That no wonder they quickly got rid of that, because that would be very noticeable.
Yeah.
If there's a gang of men doing stuff. Okay. Right. Now I understand.
Doesn't make any sense. By the time of the murder of Annie Chapman on the 8th of September, 1888, the police seemed to have decided that they were in fact looking for a lone assassin and began seeking ways to bringing him to justice. Did the murderer have medical knowledge?
I think he did.
I think so. There was a great amount of speculation that the killer demonstrated some amount of medical and or anatomical knowledge. To this end, the police began looking into the activities of several medical students who have spent time in asylums.
Oh.
Don't know why. I mean, I guess kind of makes sense. They're crazy.
They're mentally insane or whatever. Yeah. Because back then you would be considered insane. Right. It's not that you they of course could have had bipolar, anything, but you would have just been insane.
Right. So. Anything out of the ordinary.
Insane.
Yeah, insane. Go to the asylum.
Yep.
However, this line of inquiry drew a blank as the movements of the students were accounted for and they were ruled out of involvement in the crimes. Was he a butcher or a slaughterman? Was another question.
Pigs are closely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Others disagreed that the murderer was demonstrating any great degree of medical skill and
that's crazy.
That his abilities were little more than those of a butcher or slaughterman, which is crazy because when you hear the detailed accounts of what this man did, he definitely had some kind of knowledge.
But I also what was that?
Also. Still like a reporter.
I know. But I also want to point out again that like Pig's Anatomy,
Yeah.
they use that. Like
Right.
that if it wasn't, now I do still think it was a medical person, but if they did have butchering and they are used to taking, I feel like they could definitely find it in a person.
There's someone that I'll talk about that was a butcher that it could make sense. I could see it. The police, therefore, carried out extensive inquiries amongst the numerous local butchers and slaughterhouses. But yet again, nothing came of their investigation, as all the alibis checked out, thus eliminating those interviewed as suspects. Did he live in the area?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Throughout the hunt for Jack the Ripper, the police remained convinced that they were looking for a suspect who lived in the district, and on the whole, their inquiries and investigation focused on the neighborhood where the crimes were occurring. Over 2,000 interviews were carried out by the Victorian police officers. More than 300 people were actually investigated, and 80 people were detained in police custody.
I'm kind of impressed. I'm not going to lie.
I know.
Typically, they're not. I'm very impressed.
They
I'm
were.
going to tell you, the more and more I read about like murders over in Europe and stuff, they were a lot more vigilant.
Oh, yeah.
Than here in America.
Yes, I agree.
So hats off to you guys.
I have to like give it to them. It is possible that Jack the Ripper was one of these, but none of the interviews, investigations, or detentions yielded anything concrete that enabled the police to point the finger at one suspect and say that he was Jack the Ripper. So now we're going to get into the suspects. So we have the first one. And I'm sorry if I pronounce the names wrong. They're a little weird. We have Carl Fingenbaum.
Carl
Fingenbaum. It's unlikely that anyone knows who the real Carl Fingenbaum is.
Oh.
It's reported that he changed his name several times.
To that?
Yeah. I don't know why. Fingenbaum. Feigenbaum. Maybe it's Feigenbaum.
That's weird.
It's Feigenbaum.
Feigenbaum.
Something.
Whatever. It's a very weird name to change your name to.
Yes. Meaning that we may never know his true identity. What we do know, however, is that he was born in Germany in 1840 and died in New York Sing Sing prison in 1894. And Carl was killed via electric chair after committing the brutal murder of Mrs. Juliana Hoffman in 1894. Okay, so like how you were just saying, how these police were like kind of on top of it, for him to have been put to death in 1894, the same year he murdered someone, is pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
Because it takes decades.
What, wasn't he in New York though? Or did they?
Yeah, and it was in Sing Sing prison.
Have to give him to that. I mean,
that's crazy.
Now it's
like 50 years from now. Wow. Okay. She was his landlady, and in the early morning, Carl was found standing over her body holding a large carving knife. So what suggests that he is Jack the Ripper? Like Jack the Ripper, Carl, that is such a hard name for me to say for some reason. Carl reportedly had a desire to mutilate women. Yeah. He also knew more than most of the human anatomy, and after his death, Fingenbaum's lawyer, Mr. William Sanford Lawton.
Oh,
fancy.
William Sanford Lawton.
Yes. Gave an interview saying that he believed his former client to be Jack the Ripper. Again, a lot of people claimed that they either were or that they knew who he was. So you got to take that with a grain of salt.
So besides his landlord, they don't have any other evidence. Are you not done reading? Sorry, go ahead.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
Like the murder of the 5 Ripper victims, Mrs. Hoffman was attacked with a knife, stabbing her and cutting her throat whilst her son watched from the window. The woman died in what was said to be an apparent robbery. Another reason that Carl Fingenbaum is suspected is that he's the 4th Jack the Ripper's victim, Catherine Edo, the 4th victim Catherine Eddowes,
Yep.
was killed not far from St. Catherine in the London docks after former murder squad detective and Ripper expert Trevor Marriott did some digging. It was found that a boat called the Reher docked at the time of the murders, and Carl Fingenbaum was on it. So,
interesting.
yes.
The thing that is weird to me, though, that is not, because Jack the Ripper, he didn't stab.
Right.
He cut the throat and sliced.
Yes.
Like, he wasn't a stabber.
Nope.
That's the only thing that sticks out to me that I'm like,
I don't think that this is the guy.
Okay.
At all. But it was worth mentioning.
I mean,
it's still interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, just because the lawyer,
very titillating.
I mean, yeah, like, I feel like a lawyer spends a lot of time with you, especially when you have already...
but a lawyer also would love to have some publicity.
Love it.
That's publicity.
Publicity.
I know. I just can't speak today or
Publicity.
any day. I feel like that would also get him pretty notorious.
Right.
And you'd be like, oh, well, I want to, you know what I'm saying? So,
he dealt with Jack the Ripper. He's a great lawyer.
Yeah. But he didn't get him.
Even though, I was going to say, you got him put to death. So, and the same year that he murdered.
I wouldn't want to mess with a lawyer.
I'd be staying far away from that.
It's like, not only did he get him prosecuted, but then he got him killed that same
year.
Death isn't
so.
No,
it's not. So what suggests that he is not Jack the Ripper? The similarities between the crime scenes seem to be the use of the weapon and brutality of the crimes. However, that's where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
Some reporters suggest that Carl Fingenbaum was nowhere near Whitechapel during the Ripper's killing spree. What?
I just keep hearing Carl Fingerbum.
Fingerbum.
And he did kill someone, so I'm okay saying that. But Carl Fingerbum.
Carl Fingerbum.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So some reporters suggest that Carl Fingerbaum was nowhere near Whitechapel during the Ripper's killing spree, although he didn't arrive in America until around 1890, and it has always been suggested that Jack the Ripper traveled. An e-fit photo of Jack the Ripper was produced in 2011, and the face is reportedly that of Mr. Carl Fingenbaum.
How'd they get it? What?
I don't know.
There's not even a blurry image of him anywhere.
No. That's why, again, all of this is taken with a grain of salt.
That's just weird. Because that you can't produce something out of nothing.
No. The description that used to create the image came from his admittance in the New York prison. However, no photos of him exist. So it seems highly presumptuous to suggest that the image is of Fingenbaum. Also, due to Mr. Marriott's report, it may suggest that Fingenbaum, at most, only committed some of the Ripper murders. I don't believe that.
No, the same person.
The same person
committed all of those. And the double murder, too, that night.
Absolutely.
Because he got interrupted.
Right.
And then he
had
that
to.
Stuff. So every single is spot on with who, and it escalated.
Right.
So no, I don't know.
Mr. Fingerbum is out for me.
Fingerbum, out.
Yep. Now?
Carl likes fingers in his bum.
Oh. Carl Finger is bum.
Carl fingered his bum.
If that's even his name.
He chose it.
He did.
So he has to be.
He chose
He now
his fate.
is title of Fingerbum.
Yep. All right. Now we got our second suspect.
Hey.
Francis Craig, the journalist.
I don't know about him, but I did hear a journalist. Remember when I was so I want to hear about this.
All right. In 2015, a new name in the form of Francis Craig was raised as a suspect in the Jack the Ripper case. But who is he? And could he really have been the killer? With numerous theories released on year to year as to whom the killer could have been, it's difficult to take many with more than a pinch of salt. However, there is one theory that refuses to disappear after coming to light in 2015 as a result of Dr. Wynne Weston Davies' book. These names are wild. Dr. Wynne Weston Davies' book on Mary Jane Kelly, the last of the I'm going to pronounce this wrong.
Canonical.
Yes. No, wait. Colonical. Yeah,
It's
colonical 5.
Yep,
Yes.
colonical 5. I already know because it's
I was going to say, I know she'll know. With the British government seemingly believing that there is some traction to the claims of Weston Davies and an exhumation of the body of Mary Jane Kelly possible, we profile the man who could possibly be named as Jack the Ripper. Born in Acton, London in 1837, Craig was a Victorian newspaper reporter and would enjoy success in his career, working in the US between 1864 and 1866. Despite being found to have been plagiarizing the Daily Telegraph, Craig would assume the role as an editor of Indicator and West London News. On the 24th of December, 1884, Craig married Elizabeth Weston Davies, a hammersmith. That's interesting. However, according to Dr. Wynne Weston Davies, Craig discovered that his wife was engaging in prostitution and filed for divorce in 1886. Theory behind Craig as Jack the Ripper goes, according to Dr. Weston Davies, he is the great-nephew of Elizabeth Weston Davies and claims that while she was working in prostitution, she would use a fake identity, and that she was in fact Mary Jane Kelly, the 5th victim of Jack the Ripper. Weston Davies' theory revolves around Craig, whom he believes to be his great-uncle, to have plotted to kill his estranged wife for revenge. As a reporter, Craig had covered many criminal cases and had become familiar with police methods, therefore killing 4 other women as a cover-up for his true motive. This is far out there. If this theory is proven to be true, the mystery would be no more. Jack the Ripper would be unveiled as Francis Craig, a then 51-year-old journalist who would have been covering his own brutal murders. The team investigating the true identity of Mary Jane Kelly has been pushing for an exhumation of the body for DNA testing, with reports that the Ministry of Justice would grant a license. Although it's unlikely that at this point the true identity of Jack the Ripper would be unveiled, this does add an interesting dimension to the case. No, it's a no for me, dog.
No. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I'm sorry.
Nope. I wanted to put the least likely first.
Yeah, that's just like...
And then work the way.
To me, that's so... I mean,
yeah.
Why would he need to kill 4?
That's very far out there for that.
You could just kill...
Yeah,
why?
you could just kill 1.
Yeah. They weren't gonna
Not that you should.
They weren't.
But...
I know, but I'm saying they weren't going to find him after 1 either.
Exactly.
So, no. I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So our third.
Mm-hmm. And if he was trying to make it look like, because he knows how the police work, why would he then, because, they had a few letters that were sent in that seemed very plausible that it was from, why would he send in letters?
Right.
It just makes
None
no
of it
sense.
makes sense.
None of it makes sense.
So number 3, Prince Albert Victor.
I know this one. Poor guy.
Prince Albert Victor, the grandson of Queen Victoria, was second in line to the British throne. Even though he had an illustrious future to look forward to, things quickly went awry for the prince. A stagnant military career, apathetic personality, and rumored homosexuality all contributed to the fact that he was largely seen as a disappointment to the royal family. Before his premature death in 1892 at the age of just 28, which is crazy.
I know.
There is much speculation surrounding Prince Albert Victor's later life and final years, not least because of his rumored connection to Jack the Ripper and the Whitechapel murders, but despite his privileged upbringing, was a life of wealth and luxury not enough to satisfy Prince Albert's bloodlust? Could this intriguing figure have been the mystery man behind the horrific spate of murders that shook the East End all those years ago?
No.
Absolutely not.
We both were like, no.
Nope. So this theory first came to light in 1962 in a book written by Philippe Julien. Perhaps conveniently for Julien, most of the key... Julien, however it is.
Just being French. Julien.
Most of the key names in the original Ripper investigation had passed away by this time. Julian's bold theory linked Prince Albert Victor with the horrifying murders committed by Jack the Ripper. In fact, he even suggested that the prince was the Ripper himself, a shocking claim indeed. This theory was then also taken up by Dr. Thomas Stowell. He published an article which accused Prince Albert Victor of being Jack the Ripper, based mainly on the findings of the prince's physician, Sir William Gull. While Julian's theory may be compelling, its main opposition came from the fact that Julian never provided any solid proof to sustain his claim. Any theory submitted without clear evidence to support it is always going to come under doubt and suspicion. And this is exactly the case with Julian's theory. However, one of the main reasons behind the theory, and also providing the evidence that Stowell mentioned in his article, was his health and mental condition. Additionally, Prince Albert Victor's death was also heavily scrutinized. According to Dr. Stowell, Prince Albert contracted syphilis in the West Indies. It is said that the fatal disease led to a decline in the prince's mental health, eventually causing him to become insane. Dr. Stowell also said that it was his insanity that compelled him to become Jack the Ripper and murder a string of vulnerable women in the East End. What's more, Dr. Stowell went on to claim that the royal family were fully aware of both Prince Albert Victor's deteriorating mental health and his secret identity as Jack the Ripper.
They were aware of his deteriorating health. The syphilis, completely true. I've actually done study on this guy.
Maybe he's someone else we should do a video on.
He loved the prostitutes. He loved them though. Yes. That's the difference.
Right. He wasn't trying to.
And I'm sorry, but those murders are done by someone who is not okay in the head, but they're not done by an insane man. Like insane, like the way that syphilis does to your brain.
Yeah.
No.
That's someone who's very with it and smart. He says that despite the fact that the royal family knew about the murders and who was behind them, they chose to do nothing. Moreover, no attempts were made to restrain Prince Albert until after the double event, the murders of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes on the same night. As the syphilis worsened, the prince's mental state continued to go downhill until eventually he was confined to an asylum where he spent the remainder of his days. Despite the bold nature of the theory and claims, the concrete evidence to support it was minimal at best. For starters, although Dr. Stowell claimed to have used Sir William Gull's medical notes as a bias for his article, this was never proven. Gull passed away in 1890, 2 years after the Ripper murders, yet 2 years before Prince Albert's death. In addition, it was confirmed that Prince Albert wasn't even in London when most of the Ripper murders took place. Another theory suggests that one of the Ripper victims was pregnant with Prince Albert's unborn child. In order to silence her voice and protect the integrity of both the prince and the crown, the concept of Jack the Ripper was dreamt up.
I'm not gonna lie. I could see the family drumming something like that up, but I don't think that's what it was.
No.
But I could
see that. I could see them coming up with some crazy theories.
Something, but I don't think they would.
That.
Yeah, I think that's a little.
Yeah. The theory says that the mother of his child was murdered alongside the other women who knew the prince's little secret. However, once again, no solid evidence to support this theory has ever come to light, and is probable that the theory is nothing more than purely fiction.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. But also, fun fact, and I'm going to have to check my fact, but I'm pretty sure the Prince Albert comes from him.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
The
I'm
piercing.
pretty sure, the piercing of Prince Albert is named after him. He loved the sexcapades.
Oh.
And he loved prostitutes. Mm-hmm. But that love got him in a world of trouble with the syphilis. And
what was that line in here? as the syphilis worsened and the prince's mental state continued to go downhill.
Yeah, but they don't have the mental forethought when that syphilis gets in your brain to do what Jack the Ripper, to hide, to, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. Like you were saying, like he was all there that way. Yeah. Like he knew to, I think if
that's
Prince
not a syphilis
was brain, it would be like, oh, and you know, everyone would be seeing it. Right. So yeah,
not him.
He's an interesting story. I think one that we should cover.
It is interesting.
But he's
not Jack the Ripper.
No, not Jack the Ripper.
Now we have number 4, Montague John Druitt. Born in Dorset on the 15th. I know the names are just so proper.
Yeah.
Born in Dorset on the 15th of August, 1857, Montague John Druitt came from a privileged background. He was educated at Winchester College and excelled at, I don't know why I said it like that, excelled at sports, developing an interest in cricket from an early age. With a glowing academic track record supported by his cricketing prowess.
Oh.
What the hell is that?
That means he's good at it.
Oh, okay. Prowess. All right.
That's correct.
He won a scholarship to New College, Oxford, where he continued his education. Montague Druitt continued to excel whilst at Oxford, playing cricket and rugby for the college team. Following graduation in 1880, Druitt decided to pursue a career in law. Druitt set up a practice as a barrister and special pleader in 1885, renting legal chambers in the Temple area of London. It's unclear whether his business struggled or he simply wished to fund a more lavish lifestyle, but either way, Druitt also worked as an assistant schoolmaster at a London boarding school to supplement the income earned from his legal business. For reasons that remain unclear to this day, Montague Druitt was dismissed from his position at the London boarding school on November 30th of 1888. The only clue we have is a newspaper report from the time which quoted that he had been dismissed because he'd gotten himself into serious trouble. Exactly what that trouble entailed, we will probably never know. Whatever transpired in Druitt's life at that time clearly affected him deeply, as he went missing in early December of 1888. And as far as we know, he was never seen alive again. The body of Montague John Druitt was discovered in the River Thames on the 31st of December in 1888. It quickly became clear that his body had been in the river for a while, presumably since his disappearance. His pockets were full of stones, which had most likely contributed to the considerable period of time between his death and the discovery of his body. Interestingly, a considerable amount of money for that time was found on Druitt's body. Could this have been a severance payment from the boarding school or something intended for more sinister purposes? Even today, over 130 years after his death, we are still unable to paint the complete picture of what happened to Montague John Druitt and why. Did he commit suicide or was he murdered? Did losing his job at the school drive him over the edge? Were there additional forces at play that we don't know about? The answers to all these questions may well hold the key to the mystery of Montague Druitt's untimely end. Some contemporary experts have suggested that Druitt could have been dismissed by the school for homosexual behavior, which was illegal at that time. It is thought that this could have driven him to suicide. Alternatively, another theory suggests that a large amount of money found on his body, which was £16 in gold and check for £50, could have been payment for a blackmailer. In today's money, this equates to a total of £7,500. A substantial amount to be carrying on your person without good reason. A third school of thought speculates that Druitt indeed committed suicide, but that it was caused by hereditary psychiatric illness, rather than any evidence of homosexuality. We know that Anne Druitt, Montague's mother, was institutionalized in 1888 due to depression. Similarly, Anne's own mother committed suicide, as did Montague's eldest sister, Georgina, in later life. It's clear that a history of depression and psychiatric illness ran in the maternal line of Druitt's family, but was this the reason for his apparent suicide? A suicide note addressed to his brother was discovered in Druitt's home. The note read, "Since Friday, I felt that I had been going to be like mother, and the best thing for me was to die." Despite inconclusive and contradictory evidence, the jury at the inquest into Montague Druitt's death concluded that he had indeed committed suicide, delivering the verdict that Druitt drowned whilst in an unsound state of mind. Whether this was true or not, we may never know. Why was John Montague a Jack the Ripper suspect?
That's what I would like to know.
At first glance, it may seem as though this well-to-do gentleman with a keen interest in law and sports could surely have done nothing to do with the horrific tale of Jack the Ripper. However, Druitt's unexpected death suddenly threw his name into the spotlight. After the murder of Mary Jane Kelly, this Mary Jane Kelly really has a lot of ties to a lot of people. The last of the, what is it? Colonical 5 Ripper victims. Rumor began to circulate that the Jack the Ripper had drowned in the River Thames later in 1891. Henry Richard Farquharson. Oh man. Farquhar. It's going to be Farquhar. The MP for West Dorset publicly declared that the Ripper was the Ripper. I don't know why that made me laugh. Was the son of a surgeon who had committed suicide following Kelly's brutal murder. He gave no name, but the description and circumstances clearly pointed to Druitt. Similar comments and allusions were made regarding Montague Druitt and Jack the Ripper being one and the same by other notable figures of the time. These included journalist George R. Sims, Assistant Undersecretary of the Home Office Sir John Moylan, and Assistant Commissioner of the CID Sir Basil Thomas. Perhaps more important, Basil.
Yeah, only because I know that one.
Basil.
It's Basil.
Sir Basil. Perhaps more importantly, Druitt was also named among the premier Jack the Ripper suspects. Sir Melville. Oh my goddamn. Sir Melville MacNacton.
Sir Melville MacNacton?
Yes.
What?
MacNacton.
Okay.
In his 1894 private memoirs, MacNacton drew particular attention to this time frame, highlighting the short gap between the murder of Mary Jane Kelly and Druitt's estimated time of death in early December 1888. Interestingly, he also claimed to have been in receipt of a private information which left little doubt as Montague Druitt's guilt. Sadly, the specifics of this private information still remain a mystery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and say
I think that
that's
was like wrong
there.
time, wrong place. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think he had anything to do with it. I think that because they did that, they said that about, that the Jack Ripper drowned himself and then it just all went to him.
Yep.
Two different stories.
Yeah.
Completely.
So now on to the fifth one, who is Francis Tumblety.
Tumblety?
Yes.
That's a fun name. Hopefully it's not too awful.
I know. Well, born in 1833, Francis Tumblety had Francis Tumblety's humble start to life is something of a mystery. Some sources say that he was born in Ireland, while others suggest he is actually born in Canada. Regardless...
Those are very different.
Very. Yeah.
Okay.
Regardless, we know that he moved to Rochester, New York with his family within the first decade or so of his life. As a young adult, he gained employment working at a drugstore and was apprenticed to a doctor there. He earned additional money peddling pornographic books on the nearby canal.
All right.
Setting the pattern early on for a dual life, steeped in gloom and deception at every turn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Tumblety moved around a lot during the 1850s and 1860s, staying in various places across the US and Canada, but never truly settling or finding a permanent home for himself. He posed as a doctor on his travels, claiming to have secret knowledge of mystical cures and medicines from India. But it's highly likely that this was simply fabricated in order to drum up more business and interest in his services. He was arrested in Canada twice, once for performing illegal abortions, then again for the sudden suspicious death of a patient. In 1865, Tumblety was living in Missouri under the fake name of Dr. Blackburn. However, this backfired spectacularly when he was mistakenly taken for the real Dr. Blackburn, who was actually wanted by police in connection with the murder of Abraham Lincoln.
Oh my gosh, what?
I know.
What?
As a result.
I was not expecting Abraham Lincoln.
Not honest Abe. As a result, Francis Tumblety was arrested once again. Sometime in the intervening years, Tumblety moved across the pond, possibly to escape further arrests, and was known to be living in London by the summer of 1888. Once again, he posed as a doctor and peddled his fabricated trades to unsuspecting Londoners.
His wares.
The police began to investigate Tumblety in August of that year, possibly because he was a Jack the Ripper suspect. And due to the nature of his business, sadly the files and notes from the Victorian investigation have been lost over the years. But many ripperologists have since weighed in to give their opinions on the matter. Interestingly, at the time, there had been rumors that an American doctor had approached the London Pathology Museum, reportedly in an attempt to purchase the uteruses of deceased women. Could this have been Francis Tumblety, or was it just a strange coincidence? An unusual request at the best of times, a line of inquiry like this would have been taken extremely seriously by detectives at the height of Jack the Ripper's reign of terror. Eventually, Tumblety's luck ran out, and on November 7th of 1888, he was arrested in London. Although the specifics of the arrest are not known today, we do know that he was arrested for unnatural offenses. Which could have meant several different things. This could also have referred to homosexual relations or rape, as homosexuality was still illegal at the time. He was released on bail, which crucially means that he was free and potentially able to have committed the horrific murder of Mary Jane Kelly on November 9th of 1888. The time frame fits, and evidently the police came to this conclusion too, as Tumblety was subsequently re-arrested on November 12th and held on suspicion of murdering Mary Jane Kelly. Released on bail once
Mary
again.
Jane Kelly again.
Oh, she comes up so much. Released on bail once again on the 16th of November, Francis Tumblety took his opportunity to flee London. He ran first to France before returning to the US. Of much frustration of the police on both sides of the pond, Tumblety did a vanishing act and seemingly disappeared into the ether. Oh, what did I do? The next few years were a mystery, and Tumblety did not surface again until 1893, 5 years later. He lived out the remainder of his life in his childhood home in Rochester, New York, where he died in 1903 as a wealthy man. The evidence certainly seems to point towards Tumblety's guilt, and indeed, the fact that he was arrested multiple times in connection with the Ripper murder suggests that he was certainly one of the police's top Jack the Ripper suspects. Today, many of the details have been lost over the years. The original Scotland Yard files are missing, meaning that we do not know why Tumblety was charged, or indeed what he was charged with in connection to the Whitechapel murders. However, one thing we can learn from the arrest is that the evidence brought against Tumblety could not have been watertight, otherwise he would have been released on bail. It seemed, or otherwise...
He wouldn't have been.
Yeah, he would never have been released on bail. It seems there was still an element of doubt in the minds of the detectives. Years later, John G. Littlechild, head of the special branch, claimed that Tumblety was indeed a likely Jack the Ripper suspect. He also said that a large dossier had existed containing firm evidence against the doctor. However, it seemed that this file had either been lost or destroyed over the years, if it ever even existed at all.
That's what I'm saying.
Alternatively, could it still be tucked away somewhere, hidden in Scotland Yard's archives? The possibility is extremely slim, but the idea of the missing dossier finally reappeared after all these years, certainly presenting an intriguing perspective. Additionally, Francis Tumblety also seems to have fit the criminal profile of the man behind the Ripper murders. He certainly possessed some degree of medical knowledge, and he was said to have frequently expressed his dislike of women. Known to be self-obsessed and odd, was this enough to cement Tumblety's guilt? Was this mysterious American doctor Jack the Ripper?
I don't think so.
It's a contender, but I don't think so.
I don't think so. And here's why I don't think so. You're telling me that this man obviously escalated, did these murders, right? Moved to New York, became wealthy, and just never murdered again. There was nothing. Like you're telling me he just stopped?
Nope.
I'm sorry. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I don't think, when you have that in you, that's why it escalated. You can't just be like, okay,
you can't
never
just turn that off.
I'm done.
No.
Oh, almost got caught. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, no. That's not how that works.
And in New York, he could have easily continued those murders
for
a while and then moved on again. So I just do not think so. I mean, he seems very strange.
He's very strange.
I do wonder if maybe his unnatural thing was he was trying to buy some uteruses. I do wonder, I don't know if, I remember hearing that there was a suspect that kept uteruses in jars and showed their guest. I wonder if it was him.
Could be.
Because
sounds like him.
That sounds like, he was trying to possibly obtain uteruses. And he liked to wow his guests at his dinner parties by showing them uteruses in jars.
Wow.
What if and that's not true, but what if someone else was killing Jack the Ripper and then this guy was just going behind me and
he's just taking, oh my God.
He's like, oh crap. He just follows the actual
Jack
killer
the Ripper
around.
just slits their throats and then this guy's like, I gotta take this uterus.
He does. Man. He's obviously a hack and a scam artist and all that kind of stuff, but I do not think he is Jack the Ripper because I don't understand why he would just stop.
Right. Yep. Now, we have our sixth suspect. Halfway there. James Maybrick. Born in Liverpool in 1838, James Maybrick entered the cotton trade business at an early age. He briefly worked in a London shipbroking office. What the hell is shipbroking? Oh, like a broker for a ship? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Before returning to Liverpool in the cotton trade. During the course of his work, he frequently traveled to and from the U.S. He eventually moved to Virginia in 1871 before, unfortunately, contracting malaria in 1874. As a result, he quickly became addicted to the medication he was given to treat the disease, medication in which contained arsenic.
Yeah.
Maybrick then returned to Liverpool once again, marrying a young woman named Florence Chandler. The marriage bore 2 children, but it was an unhappy one, with both turning to infidelity. Maybrick had multiple mistresses, while his wife enjoyed an affair with a cotton broker called Alfred Brierly.
Oh, another cotton person.
Yep. In April 1889, Maybrick became ill again, eventually passing away in May of that year. His wife, Florence, was accused of poisoning him with arsenic and was sentenced to life imprisonment for the supposed murder. Although she was later released in 1904 after serving 15 years in prison, although it was plausible that Maybrick had died under suspicious consequences. The decision that Florence was responsible and her subsequent trial and imprisonment were later thrown into question. This resulted in a re-examination of the case and her eventual release in 1904. Over a century after his death, 2 pieces of evidence came to light in which reportedly pointed to James Maybrick and Jack the Ripper being one and the same. The first was a diary supposedly written by Maybrick's own hand. The traditional Victorian scrapbook diary was discovered battered and ripped, and many pages missing, and just a handful remaining. These pages outline the Ripper murders in detail, pointing toward James Maybrick's involvement in the case. Additionally, although many of the details mentioned in the diary would have been widely known by the general public at that time, there were also references to specifics which were not known by anyone except the police and the killer. Lastly, although the author of the diary did not explicitly name the murderer, there were several references to a Sir Jim throughout the pages. This is reportedly the nickname that James Maybrick gave himself whilst in the US. Though less convincing than the diary, the second piece of evidence is a Victorian pocket watch, discovered not long after the diary was found and brought to light. The pocket watch again reportedly belonged to James Maybrick. The back casing of the watch is inscribed with the message, "I am Jack J. Maybrick," along with the initials of each of the canonical 5 victims. However, the authenticity of the pocket watch has been thrown into question over the years. Experts, oh my god, I cannot speak. Experts are divided over whether or not the watch is actually a genuine Victorian pocket watch. Could it simply have been cleverly made to look older than it was using modern technology and aging techniques? While this evidence may seem to conclusively point to James Maybrick's guilt, there are many questions surrounding this suspect which still need to be answered. Maybrick's knowledge of London and the fact that he had previously lived in the East End ensured that he was familiar with the Ripper's hunting ground. Additionally, the fact that he was regularly traveling to and from Liverpool meant that he could easily escape to the north to avoid detection if police in London happened to get a little too close for comfort. A further hint to Maybrick's guilt is a Victorian crime scene photograph of one of the victims, taken at the site of the murder. In the background, the initials FM appeared to have been scrawled on the wall behind the body in blood. Those who believe that Maybrick is indeed the Ripper think that these initials stand for Florence Maybrick, James's wife. This would then add weight to the theory that Jack the Ripper's murders were committed by an individual who hated women and wanted revenge. Could Jack the Ripper really have been seeking revenge on his wife for having an affair?
No.
Don't think it's him.
No, but can I just say, I know that they are being unfaithful to each other, but he was taking medicine with arsenic in it, and this woman went to prison.
Right. For arsenic. Yeah. Hello? Like, hello?
You can literally end up poisoning yourself with arsenic if you take it enough. And if he's addicted to this medication and he probably just took too much, this poor lady had 15 years
for nothing.
Oh my God. I do not think he did. No. That's I'm sorry. Jack the Ripper is going to make himself a pocket watch?
No.
And it has all the initials of the canonical 5?
No.
Come on.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's not real.
No.
That is placed. And
that's something that I've noticed with every single suspect. There's pieces that you're like, oh. And then there's one thing that you're like,
wah, wah. Yeah, you're just like.
There's no one.
No. Oh.
It's weird.
I'm not the one that's going to be like.
No. Oh. No, but not to, I mean, there's, the last one is mind-bending. I will say that. It's intriguing. But none of us are going to leave here today being like, it's him. Just a little.
So far, the things they're pulling at are just
grasping for straws.
Blatantly like, okay, there's no way Jack the Ripper made himself a pocket watch.
No.
There's just no way.
No. And then wrote his wife's initials.
Yeah, he's not like, this is you, bitch. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that's what it would be like.
That's
FM you.
Yep. FM you.
What if it was like an arrow pointing down? Like, right there.
That's her. That's what I'd like to do to her.
I know you're poisoning with arsenic.
Even though I'm poisoning myself.
Even though I'm taking it myself. I know you had one affair, even though I had many.
Exactly.
Stupid.
Yeah, doesn't make any sense.
No.
All right. Now on to Aaron Kosminski.
We have a Polish? Or?
I believe Polish. Believed to have been born in Russia in 1865, Aaron Mordecai Kosminski, known later as Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jew who immigrated with his sisters when he was just 15 years old. Initially, he moved to Germany before eventually traveling to London, England, where he took up residence in the slums of Whitechapel. Kosminski worked sporadically as a brother, but...
He's like, hey, I'm here.
I'm your brother.
I'm your brother for the day.
What do you need?
I won't be here next week. I'm very sporadic.
meant barber. Very different. My mouth hurts from talking so much. I have a cut on my tongue and it hurts the side of my tongue. Okay. But is believed to have been heavily reliant on support from his family. In July of 1890, he was admitted to Mile End Old Town Workhouse before being released just 3 days later. However, he was admitted again in February the following year, following claims that he had been exhibiting threatening behavior with a knife towards women. He spent a short time here before a transfer to Colony before a transfer to Colony Health Lunatic Asylum, before being moved again to Leavesden Asylum in April 1894. Known to hear voices and have a fear of eating or drinking anything from others. Kosminski was paranoid and emaciated before and during his incarceration. This was an addiction to his outright refusal to wash. He was just 53 years old when he died of gangrene in February 1919. At the time of Jack the Ripper's killings, Kosminski was 23 years old.
I was going to say, he would have been young.
Believed to have had a poor grasp of English and slight of build thanks to his particular eating habits. Which is a stretch from the late 30 to 40-something stocky male that many describe Ripper as being. So, how did he find himself named as one of the suspects? Although not officially named a suspect by police, investigating Jack the Ripper killings, the name Kosminski had cropped up multiple times over the years. Firstly, Chief Inspector Swanson was also a firm believer that Kosminski was a prime Jack the Ripper suspect. Alongside this Kosminski, no first name was noted in memos written by Assistant Chief Constable Sir Melvin McNaughton. There's McNaughton again.
McNaughton.
In 1894, McNugget. In 1894, in his notes, he described Kosminski as a Polish Jew of low class with a hatred of women and homicidal tendencies.
Oh.
In addition, the name Kosminski also appeared in the memoirs of the Assistant Commissioner Sir Robert Anderson in 1910, based on Kosminski's violent outburst with a knife that led to his arrest and detainment in the workhouse, and subsequently, and subsequently Conley Hatch Asylum. However, the evidence comes under scrutiny at this point, as Anderson went to say that Kosminski died shortly after his arrest, despite it being believed that Aaron Kosminski died many years later in 1919. Assistant Commissioner Anderson also made claims that Kosminski was identified as Jack the Ripper by a witness who was unable to help prosecution because he was unable to testify against a fellow Jew, although this was never verified. The biggest piece of evidence that points the fingers firmly at Kosminski, however, has to be the discovery of a stained and bloody shawl that was found at the murder scene of Ripper's fourth victim, Catherine Eddowes. After allegedly being removed from the official police evidence and handed down through the family, the shawl was bought at an auction by author Russell Edwards in 2014, who immediately commissioned a DNA test to be undertaken at the hands of Dr. Jerry Laulainen. The initial results were met with skepticism as they lacked peer review. However, they were rerun again in early 2019 by Liverpool John Moores University and University of Leeds, which corroborated the fact that mitochondrial DNA was present, which matched descendants of both Catherine Eddowes and Aaron Kosminski. And that's where that ends.
I don't think so. But also, Catherine Eddowes was a prostitute.
Right.
So it very well could be DNA. I
Right.
mean, I could definitely,
Exactly.
I guarantee you've already heard Mary Kane Jelly.
Mary Kane Jelly. Yes.
Kelly has crossed paths. So to
lot.
me, if there's anything there, I feel like that to me would be.
It's not crazy that the DNA was on.
Again, he had outbursts and outbursts. He's not going to go from these outbursts to then stalking in the dark, killing in the dark, not coming out. Like, it's just, it'd be one thing if it was an outburst and he killed and then disappeared, but that's just so different.
Very.
So different. So I just don't think so with him. No. I think that's definitely, but also really gross that he wouldn't wash.
It's pretty gross. And he just emaciated himself and wouldn't eat from other people.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, that's his paranoia.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. There we are again. Someone who is way out. And I think that's the problem here is they're really focusing on, because in people's minds, they're like, of course, you're like, only way you could do this is if you're like mentally ill.
Yeah.
Yes, but there's different forms. It's not like a mental illness like he had or, where he, obviously hated women. Sure. But so many other people hate women too. It doesn't mean that they're a secret killer. It's just the way that Jack killed, so vastly different than any of these people are being brought up. So it's just interesting to me that that's what they were focusing on.
Here's my theory, is I think Jack the Ripper was wealthy.
Absolutely.
I think he was very educated,
Absolutely.
Either in medical, maybe a butcher, but I definitely lean more towards medical.
I lean more towards medical too.
He knew anatomy.
Uh-huh.
I know that they think that he lived in Whitechapel. I don't think he did. I think he knew it well.
He frequented it.
Yes. I don't think he lived there.
I think he frequented it for a while before he decided to finally make his move.
He knew his way around there, no doubt.
The prostitutes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's my thinking.
Because if you read and they spot the women various times with a men with like this hat on, or the women are very comfortable.
Yeah.
They're laughing. They're not upset. So I think that he is someone that has frequented these women and those streets, and he knew it. He knew it. But I do think he was wealthy.
Yeah.
And I do think he absolutely had medical knowledge.
100%.
Because again, the butcher thing is, I think, interesting. Yeah. And it's something that I won't rule out. But this man knew pitch black where he's got to cut these things out.
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't until he got one alone in a room that he took his
time,
fun time in his mind, of dissecting this woman by peeling skin off, taking her meat away. Like, all the things he was doing was a dissection.
Right. Which is not common.
Medical.
Yeah, that's not common knowledge amongst people.
No, not at all. Not the way he did it. So, I think that they were just so off base.
Because they were way too focused on, and it's a person in an insane asylum. They are out of their mind.
They couldn't grasp the fact that someone that you would walk and talk to on a street could possibly be, it would have to be someone out of their mind. That's just not the case.
No, just absolutely not.
All right,
All right, now on to Walter Sickert. This is the artist. This is the interesting artist. It's not the artist, but it's interesting. Walter Richard Sickert was... Walter Richard Sickert. I feel like I said that really weird. Richard Sickert was born on the 31st of May, 1860 in Munich, Germany, to artist Oswald Sickert and his wife, Eleanor Louisa Henry. The family relocated to Britain when Walter was 8 years old and were granted British nationality soon after. With Sickert Sr. having been recommended to the keeper of the National Gallery, it comes as no surprise that young Sickert went on to study art. He eventually became an assistant to an American artist, James Abbott McNeill Whistler, before discovering his own style. Sickert's earlier work was known for its somber tones and depictions, and that this soon developed into his own version of Impressionism. He was known to be fascinated with urban culture and worked from studios where he could observe the working class life around him. Over time, his artistic work evolved into realism and modernism, with a number of his most famous paintings depicting well-known personalities, as well as those he saw around him. Despite his importance to the art world, both in his lifetime and today, he was also known to have a very keen interest in Jack the Ripper's case. Indeed, it is thought that he stayed in a room that was alleged to have been used by the killer and he used his art inspiration as his painting, Jack the Ripper's Bedroom. That's the name of one of the paintings. While this fact alone would not be enough to place Stickert as a suspect, there are many who have theories to the contrary. While Stickert's name had been mentioned in relation to Jack the Ripper by a number of different authors, the nature of his connection with the case is widely disputed. Some, like Stephen Knight, believed he was complacent in the murders, while others, such as Jean Overton Fuller and Patricia Cornwell, believed that Stickert was responsible entirely for the Autumn of Terror and was the real Jack the Ripper. In fact, Cornwell was so confident in her own theory that in 2002, she released a book about it titled Portrait of a Killer, Jack the Ripper, Case Closed. So what was it that made one of the world's most successful and famous novelists go out on a limb and say Stickert as her primary suspect? Cornwell suspected Stickert for a number of reasons. At the heart of her theory, she believed him to be impotent with an intense hatred of women due to a number of operations he had as a child. In addition to this, she also believed his fascination with Jack the Ripper was more than a coincidence, and ultimately put forward that she believed he wrote many of the infamous Jack the Ripper letters and was subsequently the killer himself. While many are skeptical about the evidence that links Stickert to Jack, Cornwell was so confident in her theory that she invested a significant amount of her own time and money into collating evidence for herself. But is this evidence there to solve the greatest murder mystery of our time? As a child, Stickert is believed to have had a number of operations as a child that were incredibly painful and led to him becoming impotent. The physiological effects of this, Cornwell believes, left him with a pathological hatred of women, as is believed to have been the case of a serial killer with crimes like Ripper. In addition, his fascination with murder and the Ripper's killings in particular led him to paint a series of work including Jack the Ripper's Bedroom and paintings that were inspired by the murder of Camden Town prostitute called Emily Dimmock, a crime which obviously was very similar to those in the Ripper's killings. Cornwell also puts forward that Stickert was responsible for the majority of the famous Jack the Ripper letters. It was this aspect of her theory that prompted Cornwell to fund her own DNA test to prove it. She had stamps tested for DNA, then compared it to that found on the letters, and a match was found for one of them. However, as the match was focused on mitochondrial DNA, it is not wholly accurate to presume that Stickert was responsible for the letter. No less for the Jack the Ripper murders, as between 1 and 10% of the population would have shared the same mitochondrial DNA at that time. Whilst there are others who believe Stickert to have been the true Ripper, much of the evidence has largely been discredited over the years. So
I think he's just a fan, as creepy as that sounds.
Yeah.
He's an artist and a fan. And you know how people get upset, even today. Like, they'll go into Ted Bundy's abandoned home.
Right.
Like, people just
they get weird about that kind of stuff.
Fascinations, and they get weird. And he was an artist, and he just, you know, artists like to put themselves whole selves in it.
Right.
And so I think her theory is literally that was just so far out the window. Yeah. He didn't do it.
No.
That doesn't make any sense.
No.
An artist does not know.
Mm-mm.
Even if they know anatomy, because they're an artist, they do not know how to cut it out of a body.
That's very, very different.
Yeah.
Very different.
You might know the placement.
Right.
But you don't know this guy, as I read in the last one, knew how to disconnect.
He knew
what needed to be disconnected.
He was smart.
Yep.
All right. Now we got, oh man, these names are killing me today. Surin Klasowski. Another Polish.
Oh.
Klasowski. Perhaps better known as George Chapman.
Oh.
Was a convicted Polish serial killer.
Completely took it. Again, they really adapted to something more like less their heritage.
Yes.
And very interesting.
He was a convicted Polish serial killer who was also named as one of the infamous Jack the Ripper suspects.
Oh.
Despite his pseudonym, he bears no relation to Ripper's victim, Annie Chapman.
I was literally going to ask.
Yeah, no. But what other ties does Klosowski have with the Jack the Ripper case, and how likely was he to have been the notorious killer? Klosowski was born in Nagorno, Poland in December of 1965. There's little to know about his early years. However, it is thought that he was an apprentice to a senior surgeon in Zwolen from the age of 14. Following on from this, he attended a course on practical surgery at Warsaw Praga Hospital, but he typically worked as a nurse until his early 20s. It is thought that he moved to London between 1887 and 1888, settling into the East End of London shortly before the Jack the Ripper killings took hold on the capital.
And he would have been 23.
Klosowski found work in a hairdresser before opening a barbershop of his own. He shortly married a Polish girl, Lucy Baduski. That's a cute name.
Baduski.
And together they had 2 children. They moved around London a lot before moving over to Jersey in 1891. However, it wasn't long before Lucy returned to London less than a year later, and Klosowski became violently abusive to her while she was pregnant. It didn't take long for Klosowski to return to London himself, reuniting with Lucy for a short time. However, by 1893, things had ended between the pair, and he began a relationship with a woman he met at work, Annie Chapman. Not the Ripper victim.
Oh my God.
I know. Not the Ripper victim. They just had the same name. It was then that he took her surname, and from this point forward, known more commonly as George Chapman.
That makes sense. I was just realizing this is in the 90s.
Yes.
So, okay. All right.
A year later, Annie was pregnant when Chapman brought home another woman. Annie left their home, and while he knew about the baby she was carrying, he offered her no support.
Oh.
Lovely man. The first piece of evidence...
Also, was she at his house pregnant and he just brought a lady home?
Yes.
What the hell?
Don't know. Wild time.
Fry him up anyways. My God.
Wild time. The first piece of evidence to suggest that Kalinsky was a viable Jack the Ripper suspect was his arrival to London's East End shortly before the murder started. His proximity to the location of the first Ripper killings, as well as the convenient timing and the series of murders coming to an end as he left the country and moved to the US. Throughout his 20s,
he moved in 91, didn't he? Or was he coming back in 91? Sorry.
They moved around London a lot before moving to Jersey in 1891.
Yeah.
They moved in 1891. That's a long time.
Yeah, that's a few years there.
The first piece of evidence... Oh, wait, did I read that already? Oh, yeah. Okay. Through his 20s, he became increasingly more violent as the years went on. It is believed that an almost fatal attack on his wife in 1891 was what led Lucy to flee her husband in America and return to London. It's alleged that he held her down on a bed and was strangling her when he got interrupted by a customer walking into the shop next to their room. While Klosowski was distracted, Lucy found a knife underneath the pillow. He later confessed to her that he was planning on decapitating her and had planned not just where he would bury her body, but also the story he would tell the neighbors about her disappearance.
Oh my God.
Back in London, around the time of the Ripper killings, in an interview with Frederick Aberline, Lucy told the detective that her husband often left the house late at night for hours on end. This, combined with the more violent and misogynistic behavior, including the violent plan to behead his wife, drew the first real similarities between Klosowski and the Ripper, who was known for violently mutilating his victims with a knife. Klosowski's history of being a surgeon's apprentice would have easily provided him with the skills required to pull off the killings. In addition to this, Klosowski matched a witness description of a man seen with Mary Jane Kelly.
Mary.
Yep, there she goes again. And that of a man who killed and mutilated a woman, Mary Ann Austin, in the former home of Ripper victim Annie Chapman, just a few years later in 1901. Coincidence or a smug killer flaunting his freedom? After his relationship with Lucy broke down, Klosowski had a string of lovers over the next 5 years, and 4 of his long-term mistresses even posed as his wife. 3 of these wives Mary, Mary Spink, Bessie Taylor, and Maud Marsh were found to have died by poisoning by tartar emetic, which gives victims symptoms similar to that of arsenic poisoning. While it's believed that Chapman built these relationships up and orchestrated the killings as a means to prosper from their deaths, he only gained money from the legacy left to him by Spink. He received £500, which equates to £57,000 as of 2019. Despite moving around a lot to avoid suspicion over the multiple deaths linked to her poisonings, the police began their investigation of Chapman following the death of Marsh in 1902. After the bodies of the first two poisonings were exhumed by police, he was charged and convicted on March 19th of 1903 and was sentenced to death by hanging April 7th, 1903. Detective Aberline certainly believed Klosowski was a credible Jack the Ripper suspect, and there are some recent authors who are in agreement. This is despite there being any hard evidence to link Klosowski to the Ripper murders, and the doubts that may have posed could Klosowski even speak English when he arrived in London in 1888? Would he know Whitechapel well enough to have gotten away with the crime scene? And how likely would he have been able to change his method of killing from mutilation to poisoning?
Exactly. You almost had me.
I know.
Until
See, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's
almost had me on that one.
I know.
I was like, oh, wait a second.
Nope.
But then
it just goes
because
downhill.
Jack did a few times try to decapitate.
Yeah.
He took that down and around a few times. So, but then the poisoning, that's just not anywhere. He wouldn't deviate to that. So, dang it.
Although eventually convicted and punished for killing 3 women through the latter, a very different method of killing than that used by the infamous Jack the Ripper.
Yep.
So yeah, don't think it's him, but it is interesting. Could he have? I mean, if he had I guess if someone just wanted to kill, sure, maybe but the things he did, or the things that Jack did, I don't see
it. It was obsession.
Yeah, I don't see how you can deviate from that. You're gonna keep getting worse and worse and worse. You're not just gonna go from that and taking uteruses out and then just poisoning.
Not only uterus, kidneys,
anything.
And how he would very methodically lay, the intestines over the shoulder.
Yeah.
He was very obsessed with how he killed. Mm-hmm. I don't see someone who escalated then to sit back and just poison people.
I don't either.
What kind of enjoyment, not that I think it's great, but what kind of enjoyment are you going to get?
Right.
When you literally were murdering people and now you're just giving them poison. No. It just doesn't. Man, that one.
I know.
I was like, oh,
that's what I'm saying.
Second.
There's
and then
so many where you're just like, ooh, and then
boom.
No.
Yeah. You can't. It's too much of a deviation.
Yeah. All right. Now,
do I think he was a shitty person? Yes, I do.
Now we have Dr. Neil Cream.
Cream?
I don't know why it makes me laugh. Dr. Cream.
Dr. Cream.
Cream was born in Glasgow in 1850.
That's where my grandpa's from.
Oh.
Not from the 1800s.
Oh, I was going to say,
but
I don't
still,
think
that's where my grandpa's.
Oh my God, it's him.
Kidding.
However, most of his childhood years were spent in Canada, and his family moved there when he was just 4 years old. Oh, man. Is this
my grandpa moved when he was 13.
All right, so not him.
But he did move to Canada.
Yep.
Okay. Scary for a minute. No, I was kidding.
Not a lot is known of his early years, but he graduated from McGill University in Montreal as a doctor of medicine in 1876. Following this, he also trained in St. Thomas Hospital in London and then went on to obtain extra qualifications as both a physician and surgeon in Edinburgh before he returned to Canada. Despite his seemingly legitimate credentials as a medical professional, his personal life was rife with numerous women, pregnancies, and even blackmail and extortion. In 1886, Cream met
his name takes on a whole nother level with all his ladies he was talking about.
It does. Cream met Flora Elizabeth Brooks while studying in Canada. On paper, this trainee medical professional and the daughter of a hotel proprietor had everything going for them. However, this relationship soon hit the rocks when Brooks discovered she was pregnant. Cream performed an abortion on Brooks, although killing her in the process.
Oh!
Her father demanded that they Her father demanded that they marry, and they did in September of 18... almost killing her in the process.
Wait a second. Wait a second. How is he marrying her dead?
Almost.
His father's like, my daughter's dead and you're going to marry her.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of an important word that I cut out of there.
But still, I
almost murdered her. But then the father was like, you're going to marry her.
I wouldn't marry him.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, thank you.
No. But they did. They got married in September of 1876, but then she died in 1877. Initially to have been caused by tuberculosis, however, years later, Cream would be held responsible for her death.
Oh, really now?
On his return to Canada, having completed his medical training and qualifications in Great Britain, Cream set himself up as an abortionist.
Oh.
He was relatively successful until the body of a young woman, Kate Gardner, was discovered close to his office next to a bottle of chloroform. Despite the evidence, Cream was not charged with her murder. Following his near miss, Cream relocated to Chicago. Undeterred by the death of Gardner, Cream set up another medical practice in the red light district of Chicago, offering the local prostitutes illegal abortions. Over the next year and a half, a number of women died under his care. Mary Ann Faulkner and Miss Stack. In the case of Miss Stack, it is thought that Cream tried to blackmail a pharmacist who filled the prescription which led to her death. In both instances, Cream got away with murder due to a lack of evidence, which only led to more bodies. Alice Montgomery was found dead in April of 1881 of strychnine poisoning following an abortion close by to Cream's office. Although this inquiry into her death was never solved, it's believed that Cream was involved. Alongside the abortions, Cream also marketed his own epilepsy elixir.
Oh.
And for some time, he had done so successfully with a number of patients who swore by it. This success was short-lived. However, when a patient, Daniel Stott, sent his wife to collect this treatment on his behalf, Stott soon became suspicious that she was having an affair with Cream.
Cream?
To evade confrontation on the matter, he added strychnine to the medicine, and Stott soon died.
My God!
He really doesn't want confrontation.
No, he doesn't like confrontation at all.
Not for me. The only way out is she's got to die now. I can't do this. His death was ruled as epilepsy related, and it appeared that once again Cream got away with murder. He would be his own undoing. However, as he wrote to the coroner demanding the body be exhumed, looking to place blame on the pharmacist. The body was eventually exhumed. The poison was found in his stomach. Dr. Cream was arrested along with Stott's wife. While she avoided jail, he was found guilty and imprisoned in Illinois State Penitentiary for Jolie for life. What is Jolie for life?
Jolie.
Oh.
It's the town.
Oh, okay.
Jolie.
Despite the life sentence, Cream was released just 10 years later, in July of 1891, on the grounds of good behavior. After collecting inheritance from his father's death, he left America for good and settled in East End of London.
1891?
That's what it says, but that doesn't make sense because this happened in 1888.
Sense. Yeah.
Maybe it's wrong.
I
don't know, because I don't know why else he would be on here, but I don't know. Prostitution, poverty, and crime were commonplace at the time, so it didn't take Cream long to settle into London. Over the weeks that followed, he met two prostitutes, Ellen Donworth and Matilda Clover, both who died within days of meeting him.
I mean, I think he's definitely a murderer, but...
Donworth was poisoned with strychnine, and
poison.
Also Clover was initially thought to have died of alcoholism. Her death was later ruled poisoning to... These are all in the 90s. I don't know why
he's going to go back.
I don't know. All right. After a short break back to Canada, Cream returned to London and immediately set upon his victims in April 1892. Cream met Lou Harvey, also known as Louise Harris. How do you get that from? I don't know. And he tried to poison her. She was wary of him and secretly disposed of the pills he offered her while pretending to take them. A little over a week later, he met more prostitutes, Alice Marsh and Emma Shrivel. He offered both of these girls drinks laced with strychnine, but left before they died. The newspapers were full of stories about the Lambeth poisoner victims. However, Matilda Clover had never been mentioned in connection with the serial killer, as her death was not initially believed to have been a poisoning. It was thought his anonymous letters regarding the Clover murders that made police suspicious that she too was a victim, as she had done in Chicago. Cream drew attention to the murders he had already gotten away with by writing letters accusing others of deaths of these women. Cream continued to draw attention to himself by offering a tour of the murder sites to New York tourists. In July of 1892, Cream was arrested and charged with the murders of Clover Donsworth, Marsh Shrivel, as well as the attempted murder of Lou Harvey, and several counts of extortion. He was put to trial in October that year. The jury deliberated for less than 15 minutes before finding him guilty on all charges and was sentenced to death. On the 15th of November, 1892, Dr. Thomas Neal Cream was killed by hanging. The hangman, James Billington, later went on record stating that Cream's last words were, "I am Jack the ... and then died. I don't know why that's funny. I am Jack the... So I guess that's why they think that it's him.
Even though he was not anywhere near that area.
Not near that area.
In prison.
Don't know, but because he said that, we had to put him in.
What's that, sir? What was that?
And he didn't even get Jack the Ripper out.
No.
Jack the...
Oh, sorry, sir. What was that? Jack the...
That's Jack the Ripper right there.
Ah!
That's
Jack
gotta be him.
Ridiculous.
All right, well,
go on.
That's a no.
First of all, glad he died. But he obviously had a big thing for poisoning.
I feel like a lot of people had big things for poisoning then. Because it was very easy to get away with.
But, I don't know, why?
I don't know. I think a lot of it was for money.
The fact he gave it to him and then just left. He was like, they're going to die soon. I better get out of here.
I don't know.
But these aren't people that are married to him or anything.
No.
They're prostitutes and
right.
stuff. So he's a weird one. Not Ripper.
No.
Nothing to do with Ripper.
No.
That is crazy.
But he claims...
he thought it was a fun time.
Yeah.
He's already died. I am Jack the...
He claims to be Jack the...
Jack the Poisoner. That's what he was going to say.
That's him. Yep.
All right.
Okay, we got two more. All right, we got William Bury. William Bury, born William Henry Bury, began his life in 1859, living somewhere in the Midlands, supposedly Stoutbridge, Worcestershire. He lived a fairly troubled childhood, as many did in the 19th century. At the age of 11, William's father died in a horse and cart accident, though his struggles only amplified as his mother was admitted to Worcester City and County Pauper Lunatic Asylum. Here we go again.
Yeah.
Only a month later, having been diagnosed with melancholia, the equivalent of clinical depression.
Yeah.
So
Melancholy.
Oh, well, wow. The cause of his mother's sadness is impossible to know. It's not funny, it's just the way it's worded. Though some link it to postnatal depression or the death of William's sister. Well, yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty.
And they put her in the lunatic.
I don't know why this woman's so melancholy. What has she got to be sad about?
No one knows quite why she was sad.
Well, I think
put her in the lunatic bin.
I think
she's sad. Get her in there.
That's her. That's
the
her
woman's
answer.
crying. Pack her away.
Put her in there. Oh my god. Oh, only 6 months prior to this is when the sister died. So yeah, I would say.
My god.
Yeah, that further affected the mother's mental health. Yeah, I would say so. Regardless of the exact cause, this left William an orphan with his two other siblings, Joseph and Mary. Well, that's ironic. who were taken in by their uncle, Edward Henley. Age 15, William was enrolled into the Blue Coast Charity School in Stoutbridge and began his education. Though a year later he was working in a warehouse in Wolverhampton. He began to flick between jobs, working for a lock manufacturer and eventually as a hawker in Birmingham. What's a hawker?
I have no
I
idea.
don't know.
But remember how that one girl had Henry the Hawker?
Henry the Hawker.
I think his name was Henry the Hawker. That was one of her lover, like guys that would come.
Then in 1887, William moved to London and began selling sawdust in the district of Bow.
I didn't know you could sell
I
that.
didn't either.
That's hilarious.
He lived in a stable initially, but eventually moved to a house where he met Ellen Elliot, a servant of his employer and likely a prostitute. For his meeting, William had only engaged in petty crimes that like theft from the workplace, though things would eventually become more sinister. He went on to marry Ellen in March of 1888. They both left James Martin, their employer, and decided to go alone, moving into a room on Swanton Road. Only a month later, after multiple reports of Barry being a violent drunk were highlighted by the landlady, William was eventually caught threatening Ellen with a knife. Kneeling on her so she could not escape, this was a sign of what was to come.
I know what a hawker is.
Oh, what is it?
It is a person who travels around selling goods, typically advertising them by shouting.
Okay, well, there we go.
Okay.
That's him. That's what he did when he sold his sawdust.
So did Henry.
Okay.
Henry was a hawker.
Henry the Hawker.
My sawdust! Hear ye,
what do
hear
you even
ye.
say to, like, sell that?
Hear ye, hear ye. Not hear ye, hear ye.
Hear ye, hear ye? That's like a king.
Buy my stardust. Not stardust.
Sawdust.
Sawdust.
Buy my sawdust.
Why am I in country?
I don't know.
Like, come buy my
Right.
sawdust.
The best sawdust in the land.
Best sawdust from the best trees. Sorry, everybody who's actually from England.
I don't know if you can tell. We're getting loopy now.
Yeah, okay. Let's finish this.
I'm not to...
I know.
The last one is a long one, too, so...
Oh, damn.
Oh, yeah. But it's interesting. It's an interesting one.
Okay.
After being caught like this, the pair were evicted by their landlady. William was reemployed by James Martin, and Ellen sold shares she had inherited to fund the couple moving to a new home on Spandy Road. Despite their newfound wealth, the home life with the two remained troubled. William continued to abuse Ellen throughout 1888 while spending her wealth until they eventually moved to Dundee, Scotland in January of 1889. The couple attempted to reestablish themselves in Dundee, renting a room before eventually squatting in a basement flat. Whilst Ellen found a job to try to make ends meet, William would drink regularly and early February began visiting court to observe the sessions in progress from the public gallery. A few days later, he was reported to have borrowed a newspaper from a friend which featured a woman's suicide by hanging, and on that evening, he went to Dundee Central Police Station to report his wife's death. Suicide by hanging. His story was that the pair had been drinking heavily the night before and had woken. When he awoke, he found her on the floor, a rope around her neck.
Okay.
Barry claimed that in a fit of panic, he hadn't called a doctor. Instead, he cut the body up and packed it into a suitcase. What? What? Because, that's the logical thing to do. He was telling the police out of fear that they might arrest him and accuse him of being Jack the Ripper. Oh, man. His claims weren't believed, and upon investigation, Ellen's mutilated body was found in their flat, and Barry was charged with her murder. Barry was hanged in April of that year after a 13-hour hearing. There are multiple hints which suggest Henry could have potentially have been Jack the Ripper. Upon investigation, the police discovered a worrying number of references to the London murderer within the Barry case, including one of Barry's drinking buddies once asked him to look up news on Jack the Ripper, to which William panicked and behaved unusually. Barry specifically mentioned Jack the Ripper when he initially reported his crimes to the police, though didn't mention it again. Upon searching William and Ellen's flat, the police found chalk graffiti in multiple locations on the rear door of the late. It read exactly, Jack the Ripper is at. Jack the Ripper is at the back of this door. And the staircase said, Jack the Ripper is in the cellar. Supposedly, upon arrival in Dundee, Ellen was said to have told neighbors that Jack the Ripper is quiet now, and Jack the Ripper is taking a rest.
Oh, yeah?
Which strongly indicates she knew who the Ripper was. Aside from these specific mentions, the nature of the murders was also similar. There were stab wounds to the abdomen and mutilation of the body, two traits which had been seen in the canonical.
He cut her up.
Yeah, he didn't stab, he sliced. with canonical?
Canonical, you did it.
Okay, canonical 5 murders in Whitechapel just months prior. Additionally, Barry was living nearby during the Whitechapel murders, having stayed in a nearby bow. He was also unhappily married to a previous prostitute, so, it's gotta be him.
Yep.
That checks out, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Angry at women, angry at prostitutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
And there was written, Jack the Ripper's in the cellar.
Yep. And his wife said, Jack the Ripper's quiet now.
He's tired.
He's taking a rest.
To me, they sound like they were just a bunch of drunks.
Yeah.
And a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was the killer.
No.
And yeah, no. But also because I don't think Jack the Ripper was stupid.
No.
He's going to go and be like, well, see, she hung herself and I didn't know what to do. So I just cut her up into some pieces.
Also, side note, the amount of freaking true crime stories I hear where freaking men do that kind of shit is crazy.
Because they're not
crazy.
Thinkers. They're not thinkers.
Okay, now this is going to be a fun one, and it's going to be a little conspiracy. I think I told you my thoughts on this guy last week. It's just interesting. I don't think it's him, but it's interesting. So we got Joseph Barnett was one of and Mary Jane Kelly has to do with this again.
I know, because Barnett. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know Barnett.
Joseph Barnett was the one-time boyfriend of Ripper victim Mary Jane Kelly. He is the only suspect to have known to have had direct link with one of the victims. Mm-hmm. Born May 25th, 1858, at 4 Harebrain Court, Whitechapel, Barnett's parents were John and Catherine Barnett, who had originally moved from Ireland and settled in Britain, where John took up work offloading ships by the London docks. Some years later, John would become a licensed fish porter in Billingsgate Market. By 1871, Joseph Barnett followed in his father's footsteps and gained his fish porter license. Joseph was also registered on the census as living at 4 Osborne Street in the heart of what later became known as Jack the Ripper's stomping grounds. Yeah. On Good Friday, April 8th, 1887, Joseph Barnett met Mary Jane Kelly in a pub on Commercial Street. Kelly had been working as a prostitute in a brothel in France and had recently moved back to the Spitalfields.
Yep.
On the night they met, they drank together, becoming closer over the course of the evening, and agreed to meet again the following day. When they met for a second time, they decided to remain together, and Barnett acquired lodgings for them both on George Street. Over time, their large lodgings changed multiple times to Little Powder Store Row and Dorset Street. But they were continuously evicted for non-payment of rent and drunkenness. It might seem as if they moved in together too quickly, and it's unknown what Kelly was doing for money at the time, but if her past career was accurate, then it's definitely to see how they would have, it's difficult to see how she would have changed by moving back to the East End. So there's little doubt that Barnett had probably paid for his first encounter with the woman and repeated the process the next day. Perhaps he took a shine to her and promised to take her away from the horrible life. In his own way, he probably felt that he was saving her from the streets. Kelly likely thought herself extremely lucky to have found a man with a steady income willing to pay for her to live. Whether she really cared for him or not is impossible to know. Whatever the circumstance may have been, the couple stayed together, and March 1888, they began to live at 13 Miller's Court, Dorset Street. The accommodation was small, made up of a single room that was sparsely furnished and owned by a landlord. God, I'm like making shit up at this point. A landlord named John McCarthy, not McCartney, who asked for a rent of 4 shillings and 6 pence per week.
Yep.
Here they would stay the next 8 months. During this time, Kelly didn't
Trembler.
Yep. Kelly didn't get to know many people, and it would seem that very little was known of her. It appears that she kept to herself, and the only time she came out of her shell was whilst drinking. Somewhere between July and August of 1888, Barnett lost his fish porter license. It's not known why this happened, and there has been much speculations as it's to reasons namely theft, drunkenness, or simply being laid off. Either way, money stopped entering the home. In this situation, unsurprisingly, the relationship deteriorated, with the couple arguing and becoming violent towards each other. At some point, Mary decided it was time to go back to prostitution, likely as a response to Barnett losing his job, as this would have undoubtedly led to them being back out on the streets.
Yeah.
According to some witness reports, Barnett would never allow Mary to go back to a life of prostitution, suggesting that this was probably the main cause of their arguments. Jealousy, anger, and resentment must have been torturing Barnett. Kelly was different from the other victims of Jack the Ripper, as she was the only prostitute with her own accommodation and a place where she could potentially bring clients. After all, it would be a lot more comfortable than performing sexual acts out on the cold streets.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
From what we know about Mary Kelly, the evidence suggests that she did bring men back to the room. She also let other prostitutes use her room as well, leading to more arguments. We know that on one occasion, a fight between the two led to Kelly throwing something at Barnett, breaking their window, and on that occasion, he moved out. However, it's extremely unlikely that Barnett would have stayed in the same small room, and more importantly, in the same bed during all the other previous arguments and fights. Like most men in his position, he most likely would have angrily stormed off to drink his sorrows, or just sleep elsewhere until it all cooled down. He also stated that Kelly was in the habit of bringing other women back to stay the night in the 13 Miller Court, out of sympathy for them.
Yes.
This suggests that during late July and early August 1888, Joseph Barnett was effectively being kicked out of the streets, or kicked out to the streets during the time Kelly would be working. This also coincides with the start of the Jack the Ripper murders, which many historians believe started with the murder of Martha Tabram on the 7th of August 1888.
I read about that.
Was it possible that the killer was in fact Joseph Barnett seeking revenge on the women who had ruined his relationship and comfortable life with Kelly? Were the murders Barnett's attempt at keeping Mary Kelly off the streets? If this was the case, then it doesn't seem to have worked. Kelly continued to sell herself over the next couple of months, and the Ripper's murder did not put her off. On the night before she died, Joseph Barnett went to visit Kelly in her room at Miller's Court. We don't know what was said, but many believe that Barnett may have been pleading with her to take him back. 11 hours later, the landlord, John McCarthy, sent a man named Thomas Boyer to collect the huge amount of rent owed by Mary. Upon knocking on the door, he received no reply. Boyer decided to go around and look through the window, noticing the broken glass. He reached through and moved the curtain aside, revealing the brutally mutilated body of Mary Kelly. The existing photograph doesn't really convey the sheer horror that would have been etched on the faces of who all saw. Barnett matched some of the criteria put forward by criminal profiles. In 1988, an FBI profile on Jack the Ripper was put together by National Center of Analysis of Violent Crimes by a profiler named John E. Douglas, who suggested the following. According to the FBI, the Ripper would have been a Caucasian male between 26 and 38 years of age. He would have been a local familiar to the area and working in Whitechapel. That's debatable. Joseph Barnett was 30 years old, white, and had been living within a mile of Whitechapel and Spitalfields all his life. The Ripper would have had an absent father figure in early childhood. When Barnett was 6, his father died. The Ripper likely had some sort of physical defect, which would be a source of great frustration, anger, or resentment. According to one contemporary news report, Barnett had often repeated the last words spoken to him. This may have been an indication of echolalia, a speech impediment, which he may have suffered from his whole life. The Ripper likely had a job that allowed him to express his destructive tendencies. Barnett held a job as a fish porter, where he would have spent most of his time gutting the fish.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Very different.
Yeah.
Barnett also matches some of the eyewitness descriptions of the killer, 5'8", fair hair, and featuring a mustache. Which I feel like that was a lot of people back then.
It was a lot of people.
After the murder of Mary Jane Kelly, Jack the Ripper seems to have suddenly stopped killing, yet nobody knows why. According to the criminal experts, the Ripper likely stopped killing for one of two reasons. Either he was arrested and detained for another crime, or feared he would be caught and discovered if he continued his murder spree. Or he died. That's my theory. I mean, I don't think you can just stop that. I just don't think you can.
No.
Interestingly, Barnett was interviewed by the police for between 2 and 4 hours after the Kelly murder. If it was 4 hours, then it was suggested that they were not satisfied with him completely and may have come close to breaking him. We simply don't know if he was the Ripper. Another reason for stopping would be because the source of his anger had been removed with the murder of Kelly, and it would explain why he no longer felt the need to go kill. Barnett's life after Kelly's murder remained a mystery until 1906, when he was given a new porter's license at Billingsgate. After this, he is recorded as dying on the 29th of November, 1926, at age 68. The cause of death was reported bronchitis. I don't think it's him.
It's not him. I can see why they would.
Now, my theory that I had told you about Barnett is he could have murdered Mary Jane Kelly. To make it seem as if it was Jack the Ripper. He could have been so pissed at her and was like, you know what, I'm killing her, and then made it look like it was
he went overkill.
Jack the Ripper.
He went overkill, though, like by scalping her legs and skin. And I mean, that was a big overkill. So I think it's an interesting theory. I do. Like, I think that's interesting, but more times than not, to me, it just seems like the escalation. And I'm with you on I just don't think we're ever going to know who actually was Jack the Ripper. But I do think for the murders to have had to stop, he either went somewhere else in the world where they were not documented because he was still murdering, died, absolutely died. I don't believe he was detained or arrested. I just don't.
I don't either.
I don't believe he lived in Whitechapel. I believe, as you did, that he was wealthy.
Yep.
I believe he had medical knowledge. And absolutely, he could have been fatherless. I don't know about that. You know, that's usually what they do with profiles. But like, I don't believe he was a lunatic.
No.
I believe he was sound of mind in the fact that he knew how to murder, disappear, and come again. You know, do I believe that maybe that like some of those letters could have been from him? Maybe. I mean, it could have been a way to keep feeding that, you know, that little twinge, you know. But I do believe that he took things because there was his mementos.
100%.
Because that was the other thing is Jane Kelly, the last one, got a lot of things taken.
Yep.
Her nose, her ear.
And where this man didn't seem to have a place to live, where was he putting that stuff?
Her uterus. I mean, he took a lot in his last one.
Yeah.
So what I do believe is that Jack absolutely frequented Whitechapel. He absolutely knew these knew the prostitutes. And I believe that he was like a lot of serial killers could stalk.
Yep. Knew
their patterns.
Yep.
And knew that I think he narrowed in on Mary because she had a room.
Yeah, I think so.
I do.
Yep.
I think because she had a room and he thought
Yeah.
Privacy.
Well, and I think he knew that preying on the less fortunate was the way to go.
It
Because,
was.
you know, they don't have a lot of means of,
No.
you know.
No. And I think that it just talks about the escalation because of the double murder night. He got caught in the middle of it. He had to flee. That's obvious. She only had her throat
cut. And it didn't do it for him.
And it didn't do it. So he went and found someone right away while they were and then did it.
Yep.
In a quick time. Again, that is the...
Within 15 minutes, right?
Exactly. And that's what Mary Jane Kelly, like, that's very interesting, but he had time. But he knows medical knowledge.
Right.
He did it within 15 minutes. He gutted her, put her her intestines over her shoulder, did all this in 15 minutes. He had medical knowledge.
Right.
So that's my theory. I honestly believe anyone who's looked at it, I don't believe he was poor.
Nope.
I'm with you. He was educated.
Yeah.
And had the money to either disappear and go murder in some other country, or he died. I don't believe he was arrested.
And I do not believe he was H.H. Holmes.
No. H.H. Holmes is...
H.H. Holmes could never.
No, he couldn't.
Not that it's a flex, but he couldn't.
He gassed them. He couldn't even kill him himself.
Yeah.
He just couldn't, guys. H.H. Holmes was a wussy.
Yeah.
And I'm not giving Jack the Ripper praise, but that man wasn't a wussy.
He was definitely smart.
Very smart. Very
quick.
Very
efficient.
Detailed. Had a M.O.
Oh,
he
yeah.
had his stamp. And he loved to take his little trophies with him. So yeah, I mean, all very interesting. Crazy I have so many, but none of those did it for me. There was that one that I was
I know. Sounds
yeah,
or whatever.
And then boom, it was off.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, guys, sorry. This was a very, very, very long one. Oh man, we're almost at 2 hours.
I would love to hear your guys' theories though. Please, post comments about what your theories are.
Because I have never seen one that, for me, it sticks out.
That does it. Where I'm like, done.
Nope.
Even when everyone was going on about Prince Albert. I was like,
no, God,
no, not him.
It's just a joke.
Like, yeah. So please, I would love to hear your theories. I really would. I would love to hear who you think was Jack the Ripper.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely. So. Appalooby. Well, thank you so much for listening. And please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.